After caring for my grandmother for 8 years, I walked into the family meeting expecting a thank you. Instead, my uncle tossed a folder in my lap and said, "We're selling her house. You can find your own way now." When I protested, my cousin stood up and yelled, "You were just a free babysitter. Get over yourself." I left with nothing but my car keys. 2 years later, I owned the home they had abandoned and they were the ones knocking, begging for a room. I never planned on giving up my 20s that I had just finished college in Dayton, Ohio, with some vague ideas about traveling or maybe starting a business. But all that went out the window the day my mom called and said Grandma had fallen. She needed someone there full time. Not someone checking in once a week, someone living there, feeding her, helping her in and out of bed, cleaning, cooking, everything. Nobody else wanted the job. Everyone had kids, jobs, too much on their plate. Funny how people suddenly get so busy when real work is involved. I packed a bag, thinking it would be temporary. A few months, max. She'd get better, maybe need a cane, but life would go on. It didn't happen that way. Grandma got worse. Dementia started eating away at her. Some days, she thought I was her sister. Other days, she screamed at me to get out of the house. She couldn't bathe herself. She forgot how to use the microwave. I missed weddings. I missed job interviews. I missed every normal milestone someone my age should have had. But I stayed. Because she had stayed for me. When I was a kid and my parents fought all night, it was Grandma who took me in. Gave me warm cocoa. Let me sleep at her house when things got too loud. It never occurred to me to leave her. Not once. I didn't even ask for money. I lived in her guest bedroom, ate whatever groceries I could afford, and when the house needed repairs, I YouTube tutorials and did them myself. And my family? They visited maybe once or twice a year. Breezed in on holidays with store-bought cookies, took a few selfies with Grandma, posted about what a tight family we were, and breezed back out. When she passed, it was me who found her. I don't think I'll ever forget that morning. The house was quiet. She hadn't gotten up for breakfast, which wasn't unusual on bad days. But something just felt wrong. I found her in her bed. Peaceful. Eyes closed. Like she had just drifted off. I called 911, then I sat on the porch for 2 hours in the cold because I couldn't stand to be inside without her. I planned the funeral. Picked the casket. Wrote the obituary. Ordered the flowers. None of them lifted a damn finger. The funeral was quick. Lots of crocodile tears. Empty hugs. Then came the family meeting a couple of weeks later. Rick, my uncle, hosted it at his house. When I walked in, everyone was already seated, Rick and his wife, my other uncle, Mike, Mike's son, Brent, and Rick's daughter, Tara. Nobody said hi. Nobody even looked at me. Rick had a manila folder on his lap. Thick. He barely glanced at me before tossing it into my lap. "We're selling the house," he said. No emotion. No thank you. No apology. Just cold. "The market's hot right now. Good time to cash out." I sat there, stunned. My hands shook as I opened the folder. There were papers already filled out, realtor agreements, sale estimates, division of profits. My name wasn't on a single one. I looked up and said, voice cracking, "What about me?" I thought I could stay. She wanted me to live there, Tara laughed. A full, ugly laugh. She stood up, crossed her arms, and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "You were just a free babysitter. Get over yourself." Rick just shrugged like it was obvious. Mike didn't say a word. Brent avoided my eyes. I felt my face burn. I wanted to scream, to flip the coffee table, to grab them and shake them. But I didn't. I just stood up. My chair scraped loud against the tile. Nobody tried to stop me. I walked out with nothing but my keys in my pocket and a sick, hollow feeling in my gut. They sold off her furniture. Her jewelry. All of it. Took whatever money they could and left me with nothing. I spent 3 weeks living in my car. Dayton winters are brutal. I wrapped myself in 2 coats and prayed my battery wouldn't die overnight. Eventually, I found a tiny, grimy studio apartment above a pawn shop. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor coughing through the night. I worked 2 jobs waitressing during the day, stocking shelves at night. Saved every penny. Cut my own hair. Lived on ramen noodles and tap water. I told myself, one day, you'll get even. I didn't know how. I didn't even know if I believed it. But I clung to it like a drowning man to driftwood. One day, after a double shift, I drove past Grandma's old house just by accident. I almost didn't recognize it. The windows were boarded up. The yard was a jungle of weeds. The paint was peeling off in sheets. It looked abandoned. Curious, I pulled over and looked it up. Turns out, they had listed it for sale, and then spent so long fighting over the money that they never followed through. The city slapped liens on it for code violations. Back taxes stacked up. Nobody paid them. The house was about to be seized and auctioned. I spent the next 2 weeks busting my ass to get approved for a small loan. Scraped every dime I had. Pulled every favor. Begged my boss for an advance. When the auction came, I stood there in a borrowed suit, heart hammering in my chest, and made the winning bid. For pennies compared to what it was worth. And just like that, the house was mine. I moved in right away. It needed work, so much work. Mold in the basement. Holes in the drywall. Rats in the attic. I didn't care. I worked during the day and hammered nails at night. Painted. Patched. Replaced. I learned how to fix plumbing from YouTube. I planted roses under the windows. Just like Grandma used to have. Slowly, it started looking like home again. 3 months later, there was a knock at my door. I almost didn't answer it. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door and there they were. Rick and Tara. Rick looked like hell. Hollow cheeks. Greasy hair. His business had gone under. Lost the house. Everything. Tara's arms were crossed over her chest, shivering in a thin jacket. Her boyfriend had kicked her out. She had nowhere to go. Rick tried to smile. "Hey, kiddo. We were hoping you might have a spare room for family." Family. The word made my stomach twist. I stood there in the doorway, warm light spilling out behind me, while the cold bit into their skin. I said, "I don't have family anymore." And I shut the door in their faces that I could hear Tara start to cry. I didn't open it again. The night after I slammed the door on them, I didn't sleep much. I sat on the old couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling, hearing Grandma's clock tick away the hours. Part of me felt sick. Another part, the bigger part, felt satisfied. They deserved it. Every bit of it. Still, I knew it wasn't over. Rick and Tara were like roaches. They didn't go away just because you slammed a door. Sure enough, 2 days later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. It was from a lawyer. Rick and Tara were contesting the sale of the house. Claiming it had been illegally taken. Saying I had manipulated Grandma to get rights to it. Total lies, but still enough to throw a wrench in my life. The letter demanded that I vacate immediately or face a lawsuit. I almost laughed when I read it. They really thought they could take it back after abandoning it, letting it rot, letting Grandma's memory rot with it. I wasn't about to roll over. I pulled together every document I had. Proof of the city auction, the unpaid taxes, the code violations, the lien notices, the bidding receipts, the purchase agreement. I even had screenshots of the property listing showing it was a city-owned auction property by the time I bought it. I hired a lawyer with the little savings I still had left. Not a fancy one, but a scrappy, hungry one. A guy named Pete who worked out of a strip mall office but loved nothing more than kicking entitled people in the teeth legally. Pete sent them a letter so cold it could have frozen fire. The sale was clean. Their ownership rights were forfeited by neglect. Any further harassment would result in countersuits for damages and emotional distress. A week later, their lawyer dropped them. Guess Rick and Tara forgot that lawyers expect to get paid. But they weren't done yet. The next phase was pure harassment. Eggs thrown at my house in the middle of the night. Loud banging on my door at 2 a.m. Strange cars parked across the street with the engines running. I knew it was them. But I didn't react. I documented everything. Dates. Times. Photos. Videos. Then I did something I'm still proud of. I walked into the Dayton Police Department with a full folder of evidence and filed for a restraining order against both of them. It was granted. The next time Rick showed up pounding on my door, screaming that he was going to take back what's his, he got a ride in the back of a cruiser. Tara tried one more time to reach out. She sent me a text late one night. It just said, "I'm sorry. Please. I'm pregnant. I have nowhere else to go." For a moment, the part of me that still remembered sleepovers at Grandma's house, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, wavered. But then I thought about 8 years of wiping Grandma's mouth when she couldn't eat. Of missing out on life while they lived theirs. I didn't reply. Blocked her number. I wish I could say they gave up after that. But people like them, they never really go away. 2 months later, a realtor came by the house, asking if I was interested in selling. She had a client very interested in the property. Offered double what I paid. Something felt off. I said no, of course. But I dug a little deeper. Turns out, Rick had tried to arrange a private sale, behind my back, using fake documents claiming he still had rights to the house. It didn't get far because the title was clean under my name. But it showed me how desperate they were and how dirty they were willing to play. At that point, I decided if they wanted a war, I'd give them one. I started fixing the place up even more. New roof. New siding. Landscaped the yard. Every improvement increased the house's value and made it even further out of reach for them. While they scraped by in motels and friends' couches, I made Grandma's house shine. Sometimes, I'd catch Tara driving by in her beat-up car, slowing down to stare at what she threw away. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just turned my back and went inside. I thought I had shut the door on them for good. I was wrong. About 6 months after Rick's pathetic attempt at a fake sale, I got a call at work from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I let unknown numbers go to voicemail. Something made me answer this time. "Hi," a nervous woman's voice said. "Is this the owner of 1428 Maple Street?" That was Grandma's house. I said yes, cautious. The woman introduced herself as Lynn, a caseworker with Montgomery County Adult Protective Services. Apparently, someone had made an anonymous tip. Said an elderly, sick man was squatting on the property. My stomach dropped. I rushed home so fast I almost ran a red light. When I pulled up, sure enough, there was Rick sitting on the front porch, slumped against the railing like a pile of dirty laundry. A ratty blanket was wrapped around his shoulders. His face was gaunt, his eyes glassy. He looked broken. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Part of me screamed to throw him out right then and there. Call the cops. Drag him off my porch like the trash he was. But another part of me, the tired, older part, just sighed. I got out, walked up to him, and said flatly, "You need to leave." Rick just looked up at me, his eyes red and watering. He mumbled, "Got nowhere else." "Please, just let me sleep here a while. I shook my head. No. Behind me, Lynn approached carefully. We can get him into a shelter, she said quietly. Rick didn't even fight it. He just let them load him into the van and drive him away like a piece of forgotten luggage. I locked the door behind me and sat down hard on the couch. The house was silent except for the ticking of Grandma's old clock. After that, the story should have been over. But Rick being gone just opened the door for Tara. She started showing up again. Notes shoved under my door. Crayon drawings from her daughter, yes, she had the baby left in my mailbox. Pictures of her kid taped to my fence with desperate, scrawled messages, "This is your family. She deserves to know you." It would have been easier if I hated Tara completely. But the notes from the little girl broke something inside me. The kid hadn't done anything wrong. I started asking around quietly. Turned out Tara was living in a women's shelter. No stable job. No family taking her in. No real options. She had burned every bridge. Just like Rick. One night, after a long shift, I came home and found Tara sitting on the curb outside the house, holding her daughter in her lap. It was freezing. The kid was shivering. Tara stood up when she saw me, rocking the little girl on her hip. She looked like hell. Dirty clothes. Hollow cheeks. But it was the look in her eyes that hit me the hardest. Defeat. Real, honest defeat. "I'm not asking for me," she said, voice shaking. "Just for her." I didn't say anything. She set the little girl down and reached into her jacket. Pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to me. It was a handwritten letter. From Tara. It apologized. Not excuses, not blaming anyone else. Just raw, brutal apologies. She admitted to everything. Using me. Betraying me. Spitting on everything Grandma stood for. She said she wished she could take it back, but she couldn't. She had nothing left to offer but honesty. I didn't know what to say. I stood there, reading the letter under the porch light while Tara rocked her daughter back and forth. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't see the sneering brat who called me a free babysitter. I saw someone who had finally hit the bottom and realized she was the one who dug the hole. I told her to stay put. Went inside. Made a couple of phone calls. Found a small, safe shelter that would take her and her daughter immediately, no questions asked. They even had programs to help her find a job and daycare. I didn't invite her into my house. But I stayed outside with her until the ride showed up. When the van pulled away with her and the baby bundled inside, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But peace. A small peace, anyway. But peace didn't last long. Because Rick wasn't done. He came back. And this time, he didn't come begging. He came to destroy. Rick had always been petty. But I underestimated just how much anger he still had left. It started small. A smashed window one night. Spray paint across the side of the house, thief. I scrubbed it off myself. Didn't even bother calling the cops. Then came the nails scattered in my driveway. Popped 2 tires before I caught on and started checking every morning. Still, I didn't react. Rick wanted a reaction. I wasn't going to give it to him. Then one night, I came home from a late shift at the diner and found the front door kicked open. Panic clawed at my chest. I ran inside, heart hammering. The house was trashed. Drawers pulled out. Papers everywhere. Furniture overturned. The smell of beer and sweat lingering in the air. In the living room, in the middle of the mess, was something that made my blood run cold. Grandma's old quilt, the one she had made by hand when she was young, ripped apart. Shredded into pieces like garbage. I sank to my knees. That quilt had survived generations. Fires. Moves. Time itself. And now it was just rags because Rick couldn't stand that I had something he didn't. I called the cops this time. Filed a full report. Showed them the restraining order paperwork. Handed over every piece of evidence I had collected. Rick was picked up within a week, drunk and belligerent, trying to start a fight outside a liquor store. They charged him with breaking and entering, property damage, and violation of a restraining order. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get him sentenced to 6 months in jail. 6 months of quiet. 6 months to breathe. During that time, I threw myself into fixing the house again. New front door. Reinforced locks. Security system. Motion lights. Cameras on every side. The place wasn't just Grandma's house anymore. It was mine. Built from scratch out of betrayal, sweat, and anger. Tara never came back to the house. I heard through the grapevine that she completed the shelter program. Got a small apartment. A part-time job. Her daughter started daycare. I didn't reach out. But I kept tabs, quietly. Part of me wanted her to make it. Wanted someone to crawl out of the wreckage. 6 months later, Rick was released. He didn't come back to the house. Maybe he finally got the message. Maybe jail scared the fight out of him. Or maybe he just found a new target. I didn't care. He was out of my life. For good, this time. But the scars he left behind didn't fade overnight. Some nights, I still woke up at 3 a.m., heart racing, thinking I heard footsteps outside. Some days, I found myself staring at the front door, half expecting him to be standing there, grinning like the devil himself. But the house stayed quiet. And slowly, piece by piece, I built a new life inside those walls. I never forgot what they did. Never forgave it. But I didn't let it rot me from the inside either. I turned their betrayal into bricks. Their cruelty into mortar. And I built a fortress out of the ashes they left behind. Time moved on, but I never really trusted peace anymore. It felt too thin, like ice that could crack under my feet at any second. About a year after Rick's release, a new letter showed up in my mailbox. It wasn't from Rick. It was from a lawyer again. My stomach twisted as I opened it, half expecting another half-baked threat. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was a probate notice. Apparently, Rick had died. Liver failure. He had left no will, no assets, no property. Just a mountain of unpaid debts. And a lawsuit. The bank was suing his estate to reclaim the money he owed on an old business loan. Normally, that wouldn't involve me. But Rick had lied on one of his loan applications years ago. He had used Grandma's old house as collateral without telling anyone. Even though the property was legally mine now, the paperwork he faked was old enough and sloppy enough to raise questions. If I didn't fight it, there was a slim, ugly chance the bank could try to put a lien on the house. It would take months of legal battles. Thousands of dollars I didn't really have. It could ruin me. When I told Pete, my scrappy strip mall lawyer, he just sighed and said, "They're like cockroaches. Smash one, 2 more crawl out." But Pete didn't back down. He fought like hell. And during that fight, something ugly and incredible came to light. Rick hadn't just forged the house paperwork. He had forged Grandma's will, too. The real will, the one Grandma signed before her mind went, was found in a dusty file at the lawyer's office she had used in her younger years. It was simple. One line. "I leave my home and all my belongings to my granddaughter. No one else." Signed. Witnessed. Notarized. Clear as day. When I read it, sitting in Pete's office, my hands shook. All those years I thought my family had simply been cruel out of greed. They had also stolen. They knew what Grandma wanted. They knew she left everything to me. And they pretended it didn't exist. They tossed me out, spat in my face, called me a free babysitter, all while knowing I was the rightful heir. Pete filed the new will with the court immediately. The bank lawsuit crumbled overnight. The forged documents? Invalid. The house was officially, undeniably mine. No more loopholes. No more threats. No more shadows hanging over it. I stood in the middle of the living room that night, the real will clutched in my hand, staring at the spot where Grandma's favorite chair used to be. I could almost hear her voice. Soft. Steady. Proud. You did good, kid. But it wasn't over yet. Because news travels fast in Dayton. And when the Real will surfaced, the rest of the family heard about it. The cousins who called me worthless. The aunts and uncles who said I was just a freeloader. They all came crawling. Calling. Texting. Showing up. Suddenly full of apologies and fake smiles. Suddenly, so proud of me. Suddenly wanting to rebuild the family bond. I didn't slam the door in their faces this time. No. I had something better planned. Something fitting. Something final. I let them talk. I let every one of them spill their fake apologies into my voicemail. I let them send their long, pathetic text messages about how family sticks together. I let them believe just for a little while that I was soft enough to forgive. Then I made my move. I organized a family gathering. Sent out invitations to everyone who had turned their back on me, Rick's surviving brother Mike, cousin Brent, even Tara. Told them I wanted to talk about the house, make amends, bring the family back together. Of course they all showed up. Bloodsuckers always smell opportunity. They crowded into the living room one cold Sunday afternoon. Same room where, 2 years before, they had basically spit in my face. Same place they told me to find my own way. Poetic, in a grim kind of way. I let them talk first. All these fake, oily words dripping out of their mouths. Brent had the nerve to say, you know, we were just under a lot of stress back then. Mike patted me on the back and said, it's good you got the house. Grandma would have wanted it to stay in the family. Even Tara, who hadn't said a word at first, finally piped up, holding her little girl's hand and saying, maybe we can make new memories here. For her. I nodded, very calm, like I was considering it. I told them I had an announcement. Everyone leaned in. I pulled out a stack of folders and dropped them on the coffee table. Each folder had a personalized eviction notice inside. Because while they were too busy playing at being victims, they had been squatting at Mike's house, a house that Rick technically still had part ownership of, and that ownership had reverted to me through the will. Pete had found it in the probate documents. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. Legally, I owned half of Mike's house. And I was selling it. Already had a buyer lined up. Mike, Brent, Tara, all of them would be out on the street within 60 days. You could have heard a pin drop. Brent's face turned red. He jumped up, shouting, you can't do this. We're family. Tara started crying. Mike tried to bluster, saying, we'll fight it. We'll sue you. I just stood there, arms crossed, calm as a winter morning. Go ahead, I said. You'll lose. Just like Rick did. I turned and walked to the front door. Held it open. Get out of my house. One by one, they shuffled out, broken and silent. No more shouting. No more fake smiles. No more family. As I shut the door behind them, I felt it for the first time in years, real peace. Not just silence. Not just loneliness. Freedom. The house was finally mine. My life was finally mine. And every single one of them was finally exactly where they belonged, on the outside looking in. They didn't try to come back after that. Not one text. Not one call. Not one desperate letter shoved under my door. They knew it was over. They had lost. I kept the house. Not just as a place to live but as a monument. To every sacrifice I made. To every lie they told. To everything Grandma wanted for me, even when she couldn't say it out loud anymore. The roses I planted under the windows bloomed bright and thick that spring. Their roots deep and stubborn, gripping the soil like they had something to prove. Every morning, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and looked out over the quiet street. No screaming. No fighting. No betrayal. Just the steady heartbeat of a life I built with my own blood, my own hands. Sometimes I wondered if Grandma could see me. Sitting in the chair where she used to sit. Keeping the house standing. Keeping the memory of real family alive in a place where lies once rotted the walls. I like to think she can. I like to think she's proud. As for the rest of them? Mike moved into a cramped apartment across town. Brent left Dayton altogether. Tara, well, I heard she managed to keep a part-time job and a tiny rental. Good for her. I don't hate her anymore. I don't wish her harm. But I also don't forget. Family isn't blood. Family is loyalty. Family is sacrifice. Family is the people who sit by your bed when you're too weak to sit up yourself. They showed me who they were. And I believed them. So now, when I sit on the porch as the sun goes down and the warm breeze rattles the leaves, I don't think about what I lost anymore. I think about what I won. And I smile. Because I didn't just survive what they did to me. I buried it. Planted roses over it. And built something they can never touch again.